about Aldrich himself?
Aldrich is my son as well as the son of Erica Miller. He was born in August of 2022, August 7th. We lived together at our home in Powell, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, for about 6 months, and everything with him was good. He was healthy. Um, and then I came home in January 31st of 2023, to find that my son was taken, presumably by his mother at the time, as well as our dog Copper, and the house was pretty much completely cleared out of our her belongings, Aldrich's stuff for Aldrich, our shared stuff, and some personal items as well.
The relationship that you had with Erica before January 31st, can
Mm-hmm.
you kind of describe that relationship a
Yeah,
little?
for sure. We started dating. She's from Dayton, Ohio, which is where we met. I was doing my residency at Kettering Hospital. I was in my third year, my final year when we met. We met in the fall of 20, started dating, I think, in October. Everything went really well. She was also in healthcare. She worked as a tech in an ER also for Kettering Health. And we dated in October, November, December, and things were going well. I knew I was going to be leaving Dayton because I was graduating and was going to get a job as a full-time hospitalist. And I asked her if she would like to go with me, and she said yes. So we went on interviews, Hawaii, Cape Cod. I ended up getting a job out in Cape Cod, and we moved together, myself, her, and Copper. And while we were living out there in the fall of 23, we got pregnant purposefully. And we decided, because of all of our families were back in Ohio, my family originally from Mansfield, hers from Dayton, to move back to Columbus, which would be a good kind of in between area. It's about an hour each way from both of those. So I worked out at Cape Cod for about a year, and we moved back with her pending, pregnancy and birth coming up. I was able to take my PTO as well as um, paternity leave, and we lived in Columbus for since probably June. Aldrich was born. There was a little bit of scary issues with decelerations of his heart rate, and he wasn't able to progress, so she had to go for a C-section. But other than that, he was healthy. He had no major issues after birth and was a happy, healthy baby at home living with us. I was able to get an extended paternity leave for because Massachusetts has I think it was 12 weeks total that you're able to opt to take, protected by the state. So I took the full time off because I had saved money and was anticipating wanting to spend this time, with my new family. So I did that, and everything was going well. After he was born, I think, obviously the deceleration of the heart rate, she had to get rushed to the OR. It actually happened twice. They were able to reposition her the first time, and then the second time they just went ahead and went forward with the C-section. That was a little bit scary for her, I think. But after he was born and brought home, I started noticing some changes in demeanor. Nothing too major, but just kind of like not wanting to go outside the house. Um, she was very, very paranoid about putting him down at all to rest so she can get some breaks. And she wanted to opt for this thing called co-sleeping, which in the U.S. is frowned upon as a health risk, but she was very insistent about it. So she did that, and it just kind of progressed and progressed. And at some point, she didn't want our, she didn't want family members coming in. If they did come in, they had to wear masks. All these things. She didn't want to go out to take him outside at all. We would go to parks, but we wouldn't go shopping with him. We wouldn't take him to any group setting type environments. And this, it was frustrating for me because I felt like it was not normal, but at the same time, it was, her first child, my first child. And I know obviously it was stressful for both of us, probably more so for her. Um, and I didn't want to put any extra pressure on her. So I kind of like tried to talk to her about the things, but when she was persistent about it and I saw that she was getting worked up, I kind of let it go. And whether that was the right call at the time or not, it's hard to say, but that kind of stuff kind of just persisted through the fall. Um, and it got a little bit worse and worse. And eventually led to several different things that I think caused her to, abscond in January. Um, One of those things had to do with her paranoia about germs. I'm a physician. I work in the hospital. I did have paternity leave for an extended period. But when I was to restart my job here in Columbus, um, she started to, you know, be more, it's hard to say, like just be more kind of on edge. And then finally, when I did restart, she was requesting me to do odd things like, strip down to my undergarments, in the garage before coming into the house, like take off my scrubs and whatnot. And I thought that was very odd because she worked in a hospital before and she worked in an ER, which is, one of the dirtier places in the hospital. So it's not a normal thing for, I felt like it wasn't a normal request. So that brought up some issues. The other thing that kind of was weird was we went to a clinic that was working on delayed vaccination scheduling, which is fine. But the delay is not that you wait 6 months or a year to start vaccines. You start, I think, at 4 months instead of 2 months. Um, so during his 4 month appointment, I was actually out in Cape Cod because I had to finish up my job there. I had a couple weeks left to complete my term. And she was supposed to take him for his 4 month appointment. And we were on the phone. I said, how did his 4 month appointment go? Did they start the vaccines? And she told me that she had called in and they said that it was not necessary to come in at the time, that the vaccines weren't scheduled yet. And I said, that's not what I understood from our previous appointments. Um, and then I couldn't really do anything because I was 500 miles away. But I said, I had a 6 month appointment at the beginning of February. We're going to take care of this and we're going to go in and get everything started. Just fast forward a little bit. His appointment was scheduled a week after they disappeared for that 6 month appointment. And then the other thing that I didn't notice at the time, but I picked up on after everything happened in January, was that there was some uh, abuse of my financials going on that I was not aware about. I think it had ramped up over October, November, December. I think it was going on even prior to that, but essentially it seemed that there was a lot of payment for things on my credit card that did not seem like normal stuff that was for us, that it was maybe groceries for her family or taking her family out to eat, or maybe even her family members having access to the credit card information. Um, so the weeks leading up to the end of January, there was a significant amount of spending. I brought it to her attention and said, I don't know what these charges are. Do you know anything about them? I wasn't accusing her or anything, but I was just saying, like, what are they? And she said, no, I don't know anything about it. I was like, well, I must have, somebody must have got a hold of my information. I must have credit card fraud against me. Um, the day that she left, there was $4,000 charged to three of between three of my credit cards, as well as my credit cards being gone off my desk. And then going back to tally up everything, there was like $15,000 total over that were charges that were based out of Dayton, Ohio, which I don't know why they would be from there because we were living in Columbus. So I think the reason that she left was like threefold or fourfold or possibly more reasons. I'm not sure, but the paranoia about me working in the hospital and him coming down with something. Her not wanting to get him vaccinated, which is not something we ever talked about. That was hidden from me, and then the credit card fraud and whether she got into all this purposefully with a plan to leave, or if she just kind of got behind the eight ball and said, oh crap, my family started using the credit cards. I lied to him about this, I lied to him about that, and he's going to be upset when he finds out. um, I don't know the truth. It's hard to say. um, so hindsight being 2020, that's kind of the reasons that I believe that she left. um, Obviously, if you guys have looked into the pages, you might have looked at her page as well on Facebook. I'm not sure, but also some of the things that we've posted about her commenting that I've done this, I've done that, etc. So the reasons that she's saying that she left obviously are very different. Um, and I know these cases, it's always he said, she said kind of stuff, but I'm the one that's coming forward. I'm the one that's contacting police. I'm the one that's doing open interviews. I'm the one that has the court judgments on my side. Um,
And
and
showing up to court as well.
yeah, and showing up to court and not disappearing with a COVID mask and a wig. Um, so yeah, that's probably a longer than necessary explanation about the months leading up to everything. But I was there the entire time. Aldrich was our son. I changed diapers right alongside of her. Obviously, she fed him, but I also fed him bottle. Um,
Did she ever go back to work after Aldrich was born?
she didn't. When we moved to Cape Cod, she tried to get a job, but we had copper. And she worked a couple days at the same hospital that I worked at. She signed on as part-time. um, but when she got pregnant, I was like, I make enough money as a physician. uh, there was nowhere there wasn't a lot of options for somebody to watch copper if we were both at work. So I was like, it's not necessary if you work. She was also going to school online, um, or supposedly was. I don't know if that was actually true at this point or not. It's hard to say. uh, so many things that when something like this happens, there's so many things that you look back on and you question, and like, it seemed slightly off at the time, but was it the actual reality of what was happening, or was there something else going on? So there's, I think anybody that's been through any kind of serious traumatic event where they've been where their trust has been broken, you go back and you ask, was my concern at that point legitimate, or was it just something that I should have brushed aside? But she did not work once we knew that she was pregnant. I wanted her to not be stressed out, to eat well, um, and take care of herself so Aldrich could have the best chance of being a healthy baby when he was born.
Now, on January 31st, I saw your text message exchange on your page
Mm-hmm.
that you had to work late that night.
Yes, yes. The text. So there was a text exchange in the last. This is the last communication I had with her. Um, was around midday. I was at lunch break normally during how the day was going. Let her know how my day was going. Yeah, I think it was a Tuesday, I believe, Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember. But usually the beginning of the week in a hospital setting is very busy. Um, I was on can't remember if I was on a 10 or a 12-hour shift, but I think I worked like 14 hours that day. So I got home at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. But during the midday, I texted her. I said, I got alerted about it. This is the funny part. It's not really funny, but I got alerted about a charge on my credit card for $300 or so at Carter's, which is a baby's clothes online. So I texted her about it. I said, "What's this $300?" She said, "Oh, I bought Aldrich some stuff, and I got some clothes for um, her friend Rose's son as well. I think he's 1 year older." I was like, oh, "Okay." So I told my bank accept the charge, allowed to go through. The bank didn't alert me about the 3,700 other charges that were happening at the same time. Um, but yeah, so that was the communication we had midday. I just said, I have a long list of patients today. I'm going to probably stay here to finish my notes just to get them done faster. And I'll be home a little bit later. Normal getting home should have been maybe 7:30. I think I got home at like 9 o'clock. And then when I got home, her car was missing, which I thought was odd because usually she would tell me if she was going to like Dayton or something to visit family. Um, and then I opened the door and I saw that the house was like ransacked, and I freaked out because I thought we had been robbed and maybe they had been hurt. So I ran around the house looking for them. Um, they weren't there, obviously. And then I kind of noticed that, Aldrich's room that he had completely for himself, everything was cleared out entirely. Like I said, a lot of the other living stuff that we had, side tables, etc., were gone. All of Erica's stuff was gone. Um, and, I kind of put two and two together. It was obviously a very pre-planned, leaving, and then I talked to my neighbors, and they confirmed that there was a U-Haul there. There were several males, which she has 3 brothers and a stepfather, and they kind of described people who look like them as well as one of their cars that was actually there. Um, and they said, yeah, they were there all day, essentially just moving stuff into the U-Haul. Um, I called police. I tried to call her initially when I got home. Went straight to voicemail, so she blocked my number for calls. I tried to text her. We both had iPhones. They were green, which means that they weren't being read or they weren't going through. And then I tried to contact her family members, call them. They were going to, unlisted number. I had their number saved on my phone, unlisted numbers, or other people that, other people answered and they said, "I have no clue who you are or why you're calling me." Um, so basically, later I found out that presumably her, because she had my phone code, went in and changed like the last 1 or 2 digits of every phone number of anybody, like all her families as well as her um, best friends. So when I called them, I was getting numbers not in service, or she also went onto my computer and my Gmail's always logged in, and she deleted every email. She must have searched her name and Aldrich's name and deleted every email that was associated with them. Um, she took all of his. I had all his documents in a little, file, like his birth certificate, all the things from the hospital and stuff. She took all that. Um, Basically, it was almost, and I said this to the police when I talked to them. It was like an alien came and just like erased them from my life, or like the FBI came and they were like completely scrubbed. There was like no evidence that they even had lived there, other than all these empty spaces. Um, so that was hard. Luckily, she didn't go. She could have went on my phone and deleted all of my photos, which like when I hadn't thought about that for like a couple days. I remember when I thought about that, I was like so nervous just to even open my phone and look, because if those photos were gone, that was the only thing I had of him. So luckily she didn't do that. But it was It was a hard time for sure. I think I was in medical shock that first night, which like you get clammy, you feel lightheaded because you have low blood pressure. Like I was sweating all night, but I had to work the next day and it was a new job, so um, I got up and I went to work and contacted the police that night. They said, you know, there's nothing that we can do because in Ohio, if you're unmarried and if you don't go to court to designate custodial rights, essentially the mother has 100% custody, custodial rights. You can have your paternity established, and you can be on the birth certificate as a father, but it doesn't give you anything other than basically being financially responsible for the child. And I didn't know any of this. I mean, even if I knew it, I don't know. It's kind of like thinking about it, it's kind of like a point of contention. Like, you know, if you're an unmarried couple, you know, why are you going to, you know, ask your partner, hey, I want to get legal custody of our child? You know, it's going to put stress on a newborn, you know, a new mother anyhow. So, you know, I hope obviously that's not my focus right now, but I hope at some point in time the legislation can change. I can't believe that we live in a world where, you know, you can basically say who you are, and the society has to go with that, but you can be the father of a child and have no you know, preordained rights to protect your child, um, just from being the father. I mean, even if you're there, you sign the birth certificate, the mother acknowledges that you're the father, and you have no rights to your child. So it's pretty sad. And I don't know if that's a common thing across the United States. I haven't really looked into it, but you know, I don't know. I hope Ohio gets a little bit more progressive in that regard.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the future.
Now, do you have a custody order now
I
from the
do now.
court?
Yes, I do now. So initially, technically, what she did was completely legal. She left. She didn't leave a note. She didn't leave any way of contacting her. My attempts. I wrote letters to her family over in Dayton. You know, I wrote letters to all of her brothers. I wrote a letter to her, obviously, and then I wrote a letter to each individual, included the letter to her in hopes that it would get to her, saying, like, you know, I don't know what you're going through, you know, but just let me know that you're safe. I just want to make sure, because I thought maybe she had some kind of psychiatric break, potentially, and maybe her family was trying to hide her so she couldn't get evaluated. So I wanted to make sure that she didn't like snap and do something to Aldrich and hurt him. So I went and I went and filed for emergency custody initially. I went and got a lawyer, and then that's what he advised to do. So we filed for emergency custody, but the judge, this is in Columbus, Franklin County, the judge said that there wasn't any proof of an emergency because I didn't have any proof that she harmed him or that he was in you know, like immediate threat, essentially, which I can understand. But at the same time, she wasn't able to be found. She wasn't bringing him forward. The police that I asked to do safety checks over in Dayton, they weren't able to verify her safety or his safety. So in my mind, you know, I thought that should be enough for emergency custody, but I guess in the court's mind it wasn't. That was in that was the beginning of March in 2023. And then he set that for the normal custodial proceedings, which get bumped down to a magistrate. And we were able to go in front of the magistrate in May, and she granted temporary custody for me. So since May of 2023, I have had full 100% temporary custody, which was finalized in December of 2023. So in December of 2023, I have had 100% custodial rights over Aldrich.
Is there any warrants out for her arrest for taking Aldrich?
Yes. Now, initially, like I said, it was legal what she did, but as soon as I had custody, and she did not comply with the court orders, then she was able to get what are called interference with custody charges, which is I believe it's a first degree misdemeanor. So I think it's the highest level of misdemeanor before felony charges can be brought. And a lot of time, how it was explained to me was a lot of times this is just to get the parent, whether it's the mother or father, to bring the child in and usually these charges will get will usually get dropped, I guess. But essentially she got that, which did make her come forward finally. Before this, she wasn't responding to any of Columbus missing persons attempts to contact her. She wasn't responding on my attempts or my lawyer's attempts to contact her. So she got the warrant. As soon as I got custody, I also wrote letters to her and her family again, sent them to these addresses that I believe that she was staying at in Dayton, to notify them that, we did go to court. I do now have custody. If she doesn't come forward and kind of deal with this now, she's going to get criminal charges, which I didn't want for her because obviously that would impede her future of wanting to go to school, wanting to be a nurse, etc. And even though she did all this, at that time, I believe that there was still, maybe some manipulations from her family with the credit card fraud, or maybe she was just in a weakened mind state. I still felt bad, I guess, for her, with the thought that maybe there was still some reason that she didn't have control over of why she was doing this, instead of her being, 100% culpable. Obviously my, that could still be true. And maybe she's just was in a hole and just kept digging, and that's where she's at now. But I think at this point, especially seeing her in court last year and then seeing some of her videos online, I think she's 100% aware of what she's doing.
Now, when you saw her in court last year, did she have Aldrich with her?
She did not. So I got the temporary order in May. The judge I went to the Columbus missing persons, got the asked for the charges to be brought up. She got charges from the city prosecutor, filed for interference with custody, which prompted her to actually contact, they reached out to her and her family. She contacted them back, or a lawyer on her behalf did. This lawyer argued, basically Erica, through her lawyer, argued that the reason that she left was because I was sexually abusing her and Aldrich. I was a child molester, I was a rapist, I was all these bad things. So they filed, because I already had custody, they filed an emergency custody against me, trying to get custody back on the basis of all these allegations. So we went to court. We were supposed to go to court. Emergency custody is supposed to be right away, but they kept delaying, and essentially the judge who normally would oversee an emergency custody bumped it to the magistrate, because we already had a secondary hearing scheduled for the underlying custody anyhow. So the magistrate overheard her in July, the middle of July. Erica showed up. This was the first time I had seen her since she left. Aldrich was not there. The reason Aldrich wasn't there was because her lawyer argued that because of the situation that they were alleging, that it would be harmful or potentially harmful if he was in the vicinity or around me, essentially. So they were making false allegations that I was a child molester, and then they argued that he shouldn't have to be at court during this whole proceeding over his custody. But it was one thing I was kind of upset about, because my lawyer and I both argued, if things don't go her way, then her family, who had already been assumed to be helping her, probably would just hide him, and then she would just, she might get held in custody or something, but he essentially wouldn't be recovered, which is the whole point of this entire thing. but the judge went with what her lawyer was saying and said he didn't have to be at the court, but he had to be within Franklin County with another family member, so that if custody was retained for me, that she would then have to give him over. The court went for 2 full days, pretty much with giving her, 9 to 5 times 2, several witnesses on her behalf, a chance to prove these allegations against me. And at the end of the 2 days, the magistrate essentially said, I don't believe these allegations that you're bringing up. I'm going to continue with temporary custody for Charles, but we need to arrange, because the child's so young, we need to arrange some shared parenting time, something. So she asked me and my lawyer to step out and talk in a conference room, her lawyer and her to stay there and discuss what they would think would be agreeable, and then we were supposed to reconvene. During this time, the magistrate stepped out to her private quarters, so it was just Erica, her lawyer, and maybe the stenographer, I don't know. And I guess Erica asked her lawyer if she can go to the restroom. She went to the restroom, and this is known because it was on video camera from the outside. There was her walking in with her court clothes, and then there was and this was around 5 p.m., so there was nobody else there. And then there was a female that walked out that had blonde hair on, a COVID mask, change of clothes, that then proceeded to run down the fire escape stairwell. So her lawyer essentially let her go to the bathroom, even though we had already established that she was going to be a flight risk, especially if things didn't go her way. And then her lawyer came into the conference room where we were at, and she said, she's gone. And we were like, what do you mean she's gone? And it was chaos. The sheriff deputy found her court clothes in the restroom, in the bathroom, and then later got the video footage of her going in and then coming out, changed. And then essentially that's the last time she has been seen in person.
For the video. Do you have the video of her leaving the courthouse?
They wouldn't give it over, but the sheriff deputy that ended up writing the next interference with custody charge from that day saw it, and then basically I do have a picture of I don't know if I could easily find it, but I do have a picture. I think it's online as well of the sheriff deputy holding up because I was outside the restroom when they were like going through the trash, and like the sheriff deputy like holding up the court clothes out of the trash can. So unfortunately we don't have the video, but yeah.
So has there been any proof of life of Aldrich since he went missing? Has his lawyer or her lawyer seen him? Anyone has seen him since?
So there's only been one thing. The answer that I believe is no. Erica will argue that there has been, that she showed a so after that court date happened, there was a lot of things that happened. She got another arrest warrant. Her grandmother, who was supposedly watching Aldrich during the court case, and then helped him get back into Erica's hands and escape again. Brenda Wisecup, she got a warrant as well, and she's been in hiding since. But after that is when she finally officially made allegations against me with Child Protective Services, with Columbus Sexual Crimes, and later with the Ohio State Medical Board, basically trying to do everything in her power to just smear my name. But with Child Protective Services, she made these allegations, so they had to do a formal investigation. They supposedly interviewed her on a video call, and I guess she showed she says that she showed Aldrich to them for God knows what reason, despite knowing that the circumstances of everything, this child protective services worker didn't take any pictures, as far as I'm aware. Didn't didn't record the video call. Just said essentially that there was a baby with Erica. Now, this is something I had to obviously work with like therapists to kind of settle in my brain and like talk about, but I believe he is. I want to believe that he is safe. I have to believe that he's safe. But for a long time, I kind of, pervasive thought in the back of my mind is, what happened if she did snap and, drowned him or dropped him by accident or something happened initially. The way that she left seems very pre-planned. There were a lot of things leading up to it. So that goes against that. But something could have happened to him since. I mean, she is against vaccinations. She's against taking him to the doctor. Children get sick a lot. They have to go to the emergency room. And especially with her arrest warrants, she's probably not going to want to take him to see a healthcare professional. For one, just not, I guess, trusting in healthcare, but also two, because of not wanting to get found. So I hope to God that he's safe and happy and doesn't know anything about what's going on and gets to go outside, gets to go to the park, hopefully is getting, hopefully she changed her mind and got some kind of vaccinations for him and all these things. But, obviously these are hopes, not knowledge. So this CPS worker supposedly did an interview with her, and she had a child that could have been Aldrich at that time. This was in August of 2023.
Okay.
Since that time, through her lawyer, her first lawyer that she had dropped her because of everything that happened that July. She got a second lawyer. The court, every time we show up to court, which is about once a month on average, giving her another opportunity to show up in person. Like, court requested her to show up in person, but even when she would not show up in person, they would ask her to be on Zoom or a video call, which she often made an excuse why she couldn't. My internet's not working, or et cetera, et cetera. But she would send a lawyer to all these meetings, and obviously the court would demand to the lawyer to tell their client, we need proof of life. A picture, a video, something. Why she hasn't done it to today, the reason I'm assuming she hasn't done it, most logical reason would be she doesn't want anybody to know what he looks like, because he was 6 months. Any images that we have of him are when he was 6 months old. Those are the last pictures. He's now 2 years and 5 months old, going on 6 months. So obviously, I'm not sure if you guys have any children, but even, his photos from when he was first born to when he was 6 months old drastically changed. And the Center for Exploited and Missing Children, which has been helping, they have the poster online. They're the national registry for missing children. They're going to be working on an age progression. They weren't able to do it yet because it's too hard to do it when they're young. But I guess now that he's over 2, I can give them photos of my early baby pictures, as well as 9 months, 12 months, a year and a half, etc., and they can kind of extrapolate what he may look like right now. But I assume that's why she's not showing him. Like I said, I have to hope that he's alive and safe, and she's taking as best care of him as she can under the circumstances. But it is also frustrating that she has not even given the courtesy of just verifying that he's alive and safe. It's whatever she thinks is going on in her mind, whether she actually believes that I molested them or not at this point. I mean, if you lie to yourself enough, you'll start believing it. But whether she believes that or not, I mean, to hate somebody so much just to not let them know that their child is alive, it's been hard. It's been hard.
Now, with those allegations, there was an investigation into those allegations. Has there been any ruling on those allegations?
Yes, they're both closed. I do have the letter from the Child Protective Services did produce a letter that said unsustained or not sustained. And the CPD, the Columbus Police Department, sexual crimes. I've been trying to get the actual report, but I guess because there's some kind of concern that there would be retaliation, I guess, against the alleger being Erica, or presumably Erica, that they don't give the reports out. Somehow they're sealed, where most police reports are public request. So those two were both closed in either August or September. I think August. I think she put them in right away, and then they got done within August. So by the end of August of 2023, those were both closed. She still says that they're ongoing, which they're not, but it's just another thing that she's putting out there online. She does have a few supporters, which I don't know if they're unbiased, like third-party people, or if they're just people who are her friends and knew her from previously. But every time we post something online, it's the holidays. Please keep your eye. This missing child case is still ongoing. Please keep your eyes and ears open. There's always some people on Facebook that comment, oh, this guy's a molester. Don't listen to him. Listen to the mother's case, and then puts a link to her Facebook page, which, I do encourage everybody to go. That's, anybody who's like, oh, who's telling the truth? Go on the Help Find Aldrich Facebook page, go on Erica's Facebook page, and kind of make your own judgment. But
those allegations did not come out until August of 2023.
She didn't. Yes, she didn't officially notify CPD sexual crimes or really anybody. Well, she notified the court when she made her emergency custody claim, but she didn't file an official Child Protective Services report or the sexual crimes report until after she lost in court in July. So I don't know exactly when, but sometime after July 18th, when she absconded from the courthouse, she put in those reports.
And also to verify, the only time that she showed up to court was that one time that she...
Physically, yes. She did find, here in... so this is another thing that anybody who's going through something similar to me should be ready for, is that even though you receive custody, if you're in the right and you receive custody, it's not the end in terms of legalities. The court, the way that the justice system is set up is, this is my first run-in with anything in terms of police and the law, but unfortunately there's so many loopholes, and at times it seems like even though you're in the right and things are going on your behalf, it almost seems like the system's set up to help the people that are doing the wrongdoing and prevent an expedient outcome. So the temporary custody I was awarded by the magistrate, she had her lawyer argue against it, and then it gets bumped to the judge, who then has to have a hearing to review it and decide. The judge said no, the magistrate's decision was good, it was proper. And then the next person that you can object it to, at least in Ohio, is the Court of Appeals, which takes months for both lawyers to do their motions, for it to get scheduled. So in just for a timeline, I was given magistrate temporary custody in May. We had the judge review of that temporary custody in August. The Court of Appeals date that her lawyer then argued for was set for April of 24. I mean, it's not a full year, but it's good on 8 months. And then after that, she appealed it to the Supreme Court of Ohio. The Supreme Court of Ohio, I guess, gets a lot of these, so they have the ability to not go to a hearing about it. They just review the case and everything, and then they can set it for a hearing if they think it's necessary, or they'll just decline it or deny it. So that's what happened with that appeal. The final custody that was in December, she did the same. Her lawyers did the same thing for final custody in December. They argued it, which then went from magistrate to judge. That was December to May. We finally went in front of the judge in May. It took a month for even though he gave a verbal verdict of he's denying the appeal, it took a month for that written statement to come out, which was very well written. It was a long, fully inclusive of everything that's going on. It was like 27 pages or something.
You have the audio from the appeals?
I think so. I have family and friends that are doing a lot of the Facebook and online stuff. I obviously, there's a shared file that I put all the documents on. But I think one of them might have did like a review of the appeals and like went through the document, not the whole thing, but just the pinpoint parts, and made a video about it or made several clips. I've been meaning to kind of go on and just give a lengthier, accounting, I guess, kind of like what I'm doing now, but even like the full of my side of things, similar to kind of what Erica has done. But at some level, I kind of wanted to keep this, out of public eye, one, because of my occupation, but also, I mean, it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing for many reasons, for these allegations to be out there and me having to defend against them. But also, I'm from Ohio. I know a lot of people in Columbus. Like, I would like to stay here, but all this stuff happening, it's just kind of like, I don't know. Even though I shouldn't feel like ashamed, I am kind of ashamed. I mean, how did I get duped so badly, from this person? I even challenge my own thoughts of, did she actually love me? Did she want to have a family with me? Or was this just some kind of, and this wasn't ever my thought, but this is what other people have said is, I got love bombed and got duped from the beginning. And she just wanted to have a child with a doctor, and maybe her plan all along was to do this and then basically live off of my child support. I don't know. It's hard to say because she hasn't really told her side of the story other than just saying that she's done it all for these allegation purposes. But yeah, there is a lot of stuff online. Most of it, I think, is on the Help Find Aldrich French Facebook page. I do know that some of that stuff is also on YouTube. I think some of the clips were too big to put on Facebook, so they were put on YouTube first and then linked. I know there's a Weebly account. Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna turn my mic on so everyone can hear me. Jessica, did you watch some of the Help Aldrich French District Court of Appeals audio?
I did. Yeah.
Do you know which one we should play real quick?
There's 4 of them, and they're all fairly short, but it does. I think they all deserve some attention.
All right. They good to play them real quick?
Yeah.
All right.
Failure of your client to appear has nothing to do with the fact that this case has continued without her participation.
Correct. She participated to a
So
point.
if she's
and then did not
concerned
show
about
up.
the substantive right, isn't she waiving by not appearing?
I mean, I don't believe so. I believe that if there is an attorney present that is enforcing her rights.
Can you testify for her as to her abilities, her income? I noticed they passed on child support because there was no income evidence. They passed on parenting time basically because they had no evidence and said the parenting would be under the plaintiff's discretion. So her absence has severely impacted her abilities to be represented in this case.
That's true. I don't know what new testimony would have been presented at.
Failure of your, what does he have to do?
He would still have to take whatever information there was and rule on it.
He already signed off on
He
the
could have ruled
magistrate.
that the law was not
But
compliant
he
with.
already signed off on the magistrate's decision. He's already reviewed it. He's already signed off on it. So what else do you want him to do?
Okay, so then all the parties that are in prison, in jail, in treatment, in a hospital that can't appear, you're giving this judge, every trial judge,
No,
discretion
this
to
is
dismiss.
not a can't appear. This is a failure to appear. And there's a difference between someone in prison, someone in a hospital, and someone that is refusing to stand before the court when they've been ordered to.
Yeah, I just think that's going down a slippery
Well, your
slope.
thinking may be flawed, but that's not how it works in the real world.
That his reasoning for the dismissal was a failure to prosecute. As I argued in my brief, that's not something that applies to a defendant. Failure to prosecute, it can only applies to a plaintiff.
She's the one that filed the motion for
She
the
filed
objection.
correct.
She filed the objection. So if she's not there to prosecute it, it's her motion. So why can't the court dismiss it?
Because this is an objection to a decision that was filed by the plaintiff. The plaintiff filed the original
No, it doesn't matter who
complaint.
filed for the motion to get the decision. It matters who filed the objection to the decision. You're the moving party.
Still, but it's still the defendant, though.
Well, let me ask you this
She's the moving party that filed the objection that didn't show up to prosecute the objection. I don't think they had an objection to the decision.
No, because they won. There's nothing then for them to object. They won. They filed their complaint. And
So
they
your
won.
client didn't show up to prosecute her objections.
Correct. She was not there. She was not present.
Okay.
Her attorney was, and her attorney contested the hearing. Not there. Counsel was, but his reasoning for the dismissal was a failure to prosecute. As I argued in my brief, that's not something that applies to a defendant. Failure to prosecute, it can only applies to a plaintiff.
She's the one that filed the motion for
She
the
filed
objection.
the objection, correct.
She filed the objection. So if she's not there to prosecute it, it's her motion. So why can't the court dismiss it?
Because this is an objection to a decision that was filed by the plaintiff. The plaintiff filed the original
No, it doesn't matter
complaint.
who filed for the motion to get the decision. It matters who filed the objection to the decision. You're the moving party.
Still, but it's still the defendant, though.
Well, let me ask you this.
She's the moving party that filed the objection that didn't show up to prosecute the objection. I don't think they had an objection to the decision.
No, because they won. There's nothing then for them to object. They won. They filed their complaint. And
So
they
your
won.
client didn't show up to prosecute her objections.
Correct. She was not there. She was not present.
Okay.
Her attorney was, and her attorney contested the hearing. And so,
And you do understand that an objection is a de novo review, that the court can take additional testimony. The court could have put her under oath. So if she's not there, how does the court do that?
yes, that all that being accurate, she was not there. But like I said, her counsel was, and she had participated in the case prior to that. And so, with the objection being filed, it was simply to contest the magistrate's decision that had been made months prior.
It was a magistrate's order, as I recall.
It was magistrate's order of or decision granting temporary custody to the plaintiff.
Okay.
Counsel, I just want to.
Yeah, so sorry, I forgot that those were online, but yeah, the whole court session actually for the Court of Appeals is recorded, and I believe the whole thing's still online. So if somebody wants to listen to the full thing, it sounds funny, but you have to find kind of the lightness or the levity with all this stuff going on at times, because otherwise, as somebody like myself, I would just be in kind of like a depressed mood and entirely. But the entire hearing was almost like parents, reaming a child. The parents being the judges, and the child being Erica's lawyer, who's showing up without his client, trying to make objections on absurd things and basically wasting everybody's time. That was Erica's. The gentleman that was speaking was Travis Kane, Erica's second lawyer. He's a criminal defense attorney, which I'm not even really sure why he was involved with this case, because I don't think he does family law. I think he just does criminal defense law. But I guess there's probably nobody else willing to take the case. And the female who was speaking was, off the top of my head, I can't remember her last name, but she actually used to be a judge for the juvenile courts. And when she went up to the Court of Appeals, her replacement is the judge who's presiding over Aldrich's case. So this woman who's speaking has, years or decades of specifically juvenile court experience. So this Court of Appeals was, like I mentioned, for the temporary custody order, and her the argument specifically that Travis Kane is making was two in part. First part was that we were able to get this special search warrant approved that allows basically any police to enter a domicile if they have reasonable suspicion that the child is there. Usually the procedure to be able to enter somebody's home is they have to call a judge and get a specific warrant for that address. This special warrant, which has just come into existence, I think, since 2018, will allow entry into any location without the specific address being listed ahead of time. It's a way to help expedite, with the exigent circumstances of finding a child, specifically for missing children. So there was a hiccup in terms of the filing for that. My lawyer went in, he talked to he had the motion, talked to the court people. The judge set an emergency hearing for that day. I came in. Travis Kane, I think, was video called in from Dayton. And basically that court hearing, which was on August 31st of 2023, went over the fact that Erica's likely out of state, and that Aldrich may be in imminent danger in her custody. So to be able to grant this warrant. So the second part of that appeal from the Court of Appeals, the first part was just saying that there was the thing wasn't filed properly, which they did say it wasn't filed properly. So they did say that it has to be filed again, essentially. Not that it's going to change anything of the decision, just that it has to be filed again. The second part was that essentially Erica wasn't served. And this is an argument that I think she still makes for the initial temporary custody that was given in 2023, because she wasn't present at the time. I tried to notify her that there was a court session. Whether she got any of my communications over those preceding months or not, I don't know. Some of those letters were returned from her family without them even being opened, so it could have been one of those. I don't know. But essentially saying that because she wasn't ever served, she didn't have to be there, and there couldn't be a judgment made. And I think normally in court sessions that's true. However, in juvenile court, there is some kind of, and I want to say some vague, but my lawyer knows specifically where it is, and the judges and magistrates know about it because they work in the juvenile court system. But basically, the judge or the magistrate can effectuate service even if service has not yet been perfected based on the circumstances, as long as it's in the best interest of the child, essentially is what this code, Ohio Revised Code, states. And that was our argument, against her appeal. And essentially what the Court of Appeals judges decided was that the temporary order wasn't even the final order. So, and the final order had already been given, because again, remember, this Court of Appeals thing's happening in April of 2024. My final custody order was granted in December of 2023. So basically, Travis Kane and Erica are going to the Court of Appeals to argue something that doesn't even matter anymore, because my temporary order was covered over by a final order. So that's essentially what they said in the end. It was like, one, it wasn't improper to serve her, the magistrate to serve her, because they have the jurisdiction to be able to do that in the juvenile court setting. And two, it wasn't the final appealable order. The final custody order in December was the final appealable order. So her Court of Appeals thing, which we just kind of listened to, got dismissed. And then she, like I said, again, she took to the Ohio Supreme Court, but the Ohio Supreme Court did not deign to listen to it. So they just dismissed it outright.
And there's also a video of her stalking you by the police. That's on YouTube.
Mother.
So, yeah, to clarify, I mean, I'm sure she's done her own online stalking or assisted in the stalking, but the video online specifically is of her mother, Kimberly Hammond, who has caused so many headaches through this whole process. But yeah, she basically admits to stalking me. At this point in time, I do have it's either a 2 or 3 year civil protection order against her. I had to go and do that at the within Franklin County. We were in court for 9 to 5, I think 3 days total. And this is a court outside of the juvenile court, so it's still in Franklin County, but kind of completely separate. And at the end of that, I was able to prove that she had done enough stuff, which included physically following me, stalking me. I think in the video, what we're going to listen to is her admitting that she drove all the way to Columbus, drove to my workplace, and tried to see me, to follow me home, to figure out where my new living arrangements were so she can feel safe. Which, yeah.
I have 3 videos. Do you know which one's supposed to be played first? I got one that's part 2, one that's 1 minute and 25, and another one that's 44 seconds.
I think the 44 seconds is the last, or the 44 seconds is the first one. I apologize.
Okay.
I think.
All right, we'll go ahead and start it.
Before I tell you this, I want to let you know, my entire family has stayed out of this. We've only helped my daughter with money.
Right.
We don't want, there's nothing we can do, so we don't want to have all that trouble with police and stuff. All we can do is help her with money, help her get attorneys, whatever.
Yeah.
He's thinking that I'm helping her, and hiding her out, and I'm living with her. I live right here in Cuba. I work.
Where's she live?
She lives in Ohio, but it's undisclosed. She doesn't tell any of us because she doesn't want to implicate us.
Okay.
I work for Kettering and Premier. I don't know what he's thinking, and I live right here in Huber.
Right.
Okay.
Where does he live?
You know what I did today? I went and I sat outside the hospital where he works just so I could see if I could follow him. I couldn't find his car though because he bought a new car too, to find out where he lived, just to protect myself, just to say, this is his address. Somebody needs to maybe go by and tell him to leave me alone, or, I'm so tired. I worked all day today and then I did that, and it was a waste. I don't know what else to do. Private detectives, they charge $85 an hour plus mileage to watch somebody, and I can't afford that. He's got one following me around.
Well, I'd leave him be, because it's going to escalate the situation. You know what I mean?
It, though.
Right, but I mean, anytime I wouldn't answer any calls from him.
Yeah.
I
don't
wouldn't.
even- yeah,
I wouldn't
yeah.
contact anyone. Even this, if he's trying to instigate something and trying to get conversation or whatever, if he's reaching out to people, but then they reach out to you and you start talking, if any of that gets back to him, he knows that there's still being contact made. When's the last time you actually talked to him?
To him,
Yeah.
I have not talked to him. He's
Well, no, I mean in general. I don't care if it goes back 3 months to 5 years. When's the last time you talked to him?
probably Christmas.
Christmas? Okay. They're going to run into
I
issues.
wouldn't.
If I know, but the same. If you're trying to go to their work and tell, you know what I mean. I'll call it what it is. That's just as much stalking as what you think is happening to you, right?
It is, right.
It's 100. I mean, there's no. I guess it is. It is 100%. If you
Okay.
feel you're being followed, so you're going to counteract by going to their work and trying to stalk them. It's,
I just kind of want
it's
to
an
know where
equal
he
trade-off.
lives, just to have like, I don't know. It just felt better if I knew where he lived. Like, you know.
I understand, but that's the from the legal side of it. The way that we're going to look
Yeah,
at it is
I see it too when you say it
Yeah.
like that.
so. All right, I'm going to head out so we can
Thank
take care
you
of
so
this.
much
Okay.
for your time. I'm
Yep.
sorry
Good
I
luck to you.
wasted it.
Oh no, you didn't at all.
Okay.
Good luck to you. I hope everything works out.
Thank you. Be safe out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so the first clip, I didn't hear the first part. I guess it was maybe cut out, but I know the clip. Basically, Kimberly Hammond, Erica's mother, went into the Huber Heights Police Department and tried to basically tried to get a start a protection order or restraint order against me. This happened in August of 23 because Aldrich's birthday was coming up, and I think I'm pretty sure Erica was in town at that point and they celebrated the birthday. Their family used to be Jehovah's Witnesses, so they didn't celebrate like Christmas or any of the holidays. So birthdays were always very big for them. And I figured Aldrich's first birthday, of course, they're going to probably get together as a family. I was planning to be, in the area as well as I did have a private investigator. So she tried to go to the police department, say all these things that I had been doing, but while she was trying to essentially try to get me in trouble, she admitted that she was doing all these things that she was saying I was doing, but she was actually doing them to me, which was essentially stalking, trying to find out where I lived, all these things, just so she can feel safe. Also putting a lot of information online. Like I would post, I would post or somebody on Aldrich's behalf would post something about him, and she would initially she did it on her own Facebook account, an Instagram account, and then she started making all these fake accounts, and she would just post, "Oh, this guy's a child molester." So, and then she would say, "I hope somebody goes after him." And puts gives him what he needs to get and stuff like that. And then she would put out my personal information. Like I think she put out everything except for my social security number, my address, my license plate, what vehicle I drove, where I lived at the time. And then I moved. So I assumed that she was trying to find my new address so she could post that as well. And that I was committing medical fraud, that I was all these bad things, etc. Essentially, I don't know if she was trying to just incite some kind of violence on me or something, some person taking up the gauntlet and saying, "Oh, this guy's a pervert, a child molester. I'm going to go give him what he deserves." I'm assuming that's what her intent was. And that's one of the things I brought forward during the protection order hearings. And we were able to tie in because in her accounts initially that had her face and her username and stuff, she was saying things, and then she switched to all these other accounts. But she was saying the exact same things in the exact same way. People have a tendency to write in a prose that is pretty consistent. Like one of the things she would say over and over again is, "Why would anybody leave a doctor?" Like, I guess in her mind, a doctor, having a doctor as a partner is like stability, financial stability, all these things. So it's like, obviously for them, the financial aspect was an important part. For me, it's like, you know, what's me what's me at being a doctor have anything to do with anything. But that was one thing she would say over and over and over again. So it was an easy way to tie in and show the posts and print them out and show the succession of her changing accounts. So in the magistrate's decision, she writes, you know, it's obvious that Miss Hammond is doing some, if not all, of this online activity, and that was part of the reason she got a protection order against her. There were other things as well. Right. Okay. The other one is, yes, the grandma. That's Brenda Wisecup. That's the last time that she's been seen by the police in person. Before that, she was answering the door and everything. The next day, she got her interference with custody order rescinded. So this night is the day that Erica decided to court. I drove over to Dayton. I let the Fairborn police know what happened, and that Erica said that Brenda had Aldrich earlier that day. And this is Officer Henning, I believe, going to ask her, as well as her husband Frank, what's going on, and then her just right off the bat going off the handle and yelling at the officer. So
I just told you she has never been issued with this kind of situation. Now, what would you do? Because you
I would do the right thing.
He's
That's
a
why I'm a
doctor.
cop.
She's not.
Okay.
He's got
Doesn't
money.
matter.
And what would you do?
It doesn't
Because you get a judge that says, okay.
Go on, Brenda.
No, I'm not. Leave me alone. I don't care. Go back in the house. It's my granddaughter, my flesh and blood.
Okay. Well, I'm just
And
here to
that
tell
thing,
you
I can't believe
what is about
this
to happen.
judge would do that to him. I mean, to her.
I'm just telling you.
Yes, have you
what
ever
is
seen the news? Have you ever seen
So
the
if
news?
you
All these poor little
are
kids
good,
getting
then
killed.
encourage her to do the correct thing.
I can't call her. I don't have her number.
Okay.
I told you not to open your mouth, and you're out here open your mouth.
Okay. Is that all you have?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
Encourage her to do the right thing.
You take him a message.
I'm not delivering him a message.
Oh, you left here. You told him one, didn't you? Don't you bring? Don't come back to my. If you know why, I'm gonna get a warrant against you for trespass.
Go ahead. My name is Officer Henning. Try it. Try it. Go ahead. Try it. Then go back inside. Have a good night, ma'am.
yeah, I don't know if it was audible at the end of that, but she basically threatened the police officer to get a restraining order against him for being on her property for that interaction that they just had. So that was the end of that conversation between Officer Henning and Brenda Wisecup.
And you said she's never been seen again since.
She's been seen, but these warrants that they have, they're considered contact warrants, which basically means that the police have to make contact with them outside of the home. It's not a type of warrant where they would be able to go into somebody's home to take them. My private investigator, myself, some of her neighbors, they've seen her at that house. Where she lives is 1459 Glendale Drive in Fairborn, Ohio. She lives there with her husband, Frank. But they've seen her at the house. She's at the house, but essentially she's in hiding within the house. Either doesn't leave or leaves only under some kind of, secret mission type of way. But I actually have, it's sad because we actually have, my private investigator identified her in the backyard. I actually have a photo of her in the backyard. So, I mean, there's proof that she's there, but the types of warrants that they have don't allow them to enter the home. So that's, I mean, the way that the legal system is set up is set up for reasons that are probably beyond me, but it's just frustrating to know that people who've done crimes are able to just sit in their homes and not get in trouble for them. And the only way that she's going to get in trouble is if she's found out in public. I mean, nobody's other than, maybe the private investigator and myself and other people that are helping, like, and some people in the public who are aware about the case, nobody's really looking out right away when they see her. And even if she's seen at Kroger or whatever, okay, somebody calls the police. How long is it going to take them to get there? It's not like it's a active shooter or something that they're going to get there right away. And probably by the time that they get there, she's going to be gone. So, and it's frustrating because, there's so many people that are helping Erica, and whether they have official warrants for their arrest for being complicit or not, it's like obvious that they're helping. In the previous clip, I don't know if it was played, but during that same interview, Kimberly Hammond basically admits that she has to work so much because Erica needs money to stay in hiding. So essentially she's giving money to Erica, and we have other evidence that her other family members are also giving her money so she can continue in the criminal activity. And I guess it's not something that the police really are interested in going after. So unfortunately, we're kind of at a point where, and this is part of the reason that we started going more public online and stuff and started putting it out there, because we realized that in a lot of ways the law enforcement's hands are tied with what they're able to do, not just what they're able to do legally, but also what they're able to do with the resources that they have and the level of interest. My child is missing. In my heart, he's missing, and nobody's provided proof that he's alive. In a lot of the law enforcement's minds that I've talked to, they basically say, oh, he's just with his mother. And it's like, you go on the National Center for Exploited Missing Children's webpage, and like one of the main tabs, it says, child abduction by a parent is still child abduction. and something along the lines as the child that's abducted by a parent is in just as much danger potentially as a child that's abducted by a non-parental family member. And I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's because I'm in Ohio and Ohio just does things differently or what. But I have friends and family in other states. Some of them tied into law enforcement. Some of them tied into the legal system, and they say how this has kind of been handled is kind of mind blowing.
Right. Now, have you reached out to any of the news or the media to cover his case?
We reached out. I've kind of been leaving that to some other people, and they've been reaching out. And I did have a news reporter, I think from, I don't know if it's called the Columbus Dispatch, but the main newspaper here. And I talked to her for a little while, but I don't know if the case wasn't interesting enough or what, but it didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
And I've talked to, outside of the Columbus Police Department, I've talked to several police departments in Dayton. Some of them have been more helpful than others. I've talked to, I'm trying to get a hold of U.S. Marshals because it's not just a local case. I mean, she's not in the problem with Columbus Police Department not being able to do anything or having their hands tied is that she's not in Columbus. I mean, it's evident that she's not in Columbus. She may be in the Dayton area. There's been other evidence that she's in North Carolina. There's a lot of family. I believe that she was staying with her best friend, Michaela Durant, in Kentucky for a period of time. There's a lot of family members like in Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina area, even stretching down to Florida. So it's hard to say like where exactly she is. And I would think she might be going from place to place just to not be in one place for too long, just because, something might finally pop up. But If she's working, which she may be, but I don't know if she is, that she's likely not doing it under her social security number. She's probably doing it under, one of her family members' names with a remote job that can still be done where the employer doesn't know actually doing the work. I don't think Aldrich's old enough to go to preschool yet, but I would, in the upcoming years, if it takes this long, I'd be concerned about her taking him to preschool, taking him to kindergarten, getting any type of social interactions, early childhood education. More concerning with the health regards, not getting him vaccinated and potentially not taking him to any physician or healthcare provider.
We do know at one point she was receiving some sort of financial help from the state as far as unemployment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know exactly. We came across this information kind of by chance, but it seems like there is a investigation has already been done, and she's been found guilty of basically employment fraud or unemployment fraud, where she collected, I think it was like $7,000 or $8,000 at some point, and later on it was, I guess, found out that she shouldn't have received that. The document that we have doesn't specify when what the dates were when she was receiving funds. So I don't know if that was something that she did after she took Aldrich, or if that was something that she did prior to. But I mean, we do have confirmation that I want to say it's the Ohio Attorney General's office that sent her the letter, which has been posted online now.
Right.
So it's not, and there's there's other than the interference with custody charge, there's been credit card fraud, there's been tax fraud technically, because she's been the first, like for 2023, she did taxes claiming Aldrich as her dependent, because when I went to go do my taxes, I got a letter saying like, you can't claim this dependent, somebody else already claimed him. So I'm assuming that's her. And she actually did the same thing so that was for 2022's taxes. And then actually she did it again for 2023's taxes, even though at that point I had already been given custody in the custody determination saying that Aldrich is a dependent of mine for taxation purposes. And I reported that to the U.S. Treasury. I have a family member who knows somebody that works for, or not the Treasury, but the IRS, that works for the IRS. And he said, unfortunately, even though like tax fraud happens a lot, and unless it's something that's in the 50 to 100 thousands of dollars, that it's not going to get looked into. So there's been, it's weird that, normal people, you think that, oh, I want to do everything by the book because I don't want to accidentally claim refund that I shouldn't get, or whatever, mess up on your taxes, or do this wrong or do that wrong. But there's all these people out there that are just blatantly doing wrong with the intent of doing wrong, but they know that they're not going to get in trouble because it's not enough of a concern for the investigative services or the police to really care. And this whole process, I think for a father, it's kind of, not to say that mothers haven't gone through this whole ordeal as well, where the father takes the child, but I think for a father, it's maybe for like a man, it's different in terms of a mindset, because it's almost like I failed this relationship. I failed with the protection of my children, etc. So they don't really talk about it so much. But I've noticed that as I've been meeting people and asking questions and telling my story, that I have found almost everybody I talk to, it's either happened to them, somebody they know, in their immediate family, or they know of somebody who something similar has happened to. My hairdresser, her husband from a previous relationship had a daughter who the mother just up and left. I guess they were from Florida. They moved to Ohio for a job, and then she just up and left and moved back to Florida. He tried to go through Ohio because that's where they were living, and Ohio was like, well, she's in Florida. What do you want us to do about it? You know, and some of these people are even married, which automatically gives them custodial rights. A lot of them are unmarried situations, but I think nowadays it's a little bit better than it used to, because a lot of the like really, I mean, my Aldrich story I think is pretty horrible, but some of them, even some of the similarly bad stories that I've heard from other individuals, even some of them being police officers, they happened, you know, like a decade ago or whatever. So I think maybe we're making a little bit of progress into realization that like mothers also do bad things to their children. But I think the acceptance of that is still kind of lagging in terms of general social acceptance for a lot of other things that, you know, are in the media nowadays. So it's been hard to get a lot of support, I guess, for this case. And then a lot of people will just want to assume that, you know, I'm the male, I'm getting accused of these things, you know, whether what the percentages of actual you know, when a female accuses a male of these things, what the actual percentage of it actually happening is or not. I mean, I think it's the assumption a lot of times that the male is guilty before proven guilty.
Right, absolutely.
So it's unfortunate.
Tessa, do you have any more questions?
I do not.
So I did want to, yeah, I just
ahead.
wanted to say, so I'm assuming Eric is probably going to see this. And, you know, obviously there's, so if you don't mind, I'll just take a second to talk to her.
Absolutely.
Go right ahead.
You know, obviously there's been a lot of stuff that's been going on for the past 2 years. I've tried to write you letters. I've tried to communicate with you in any way possible, and you've, you know, chosen not to contact me back. You know, I'm sorry for whatever drove you initially into this situation. You know, I still feel bad for you at some level, but I felt a lot worse for you before, especially when I was thinking that your family took advantage of your, I'll say fragile state of mind, but essentially you're believing that your family did things that forced you into the situation that you are in now. But forgetting all that, I mean, really, I think what we need to do is focus on moving forward and thinking about what's best for Aldrich. And it's obviously not best for him to be in hiding. It's not best for him to not be able to be taken to the park or the store or, you know, wherever, not being able to enroll him in school, not being afraid to take him to a doctor's office in case he gets sick. You know, these things that you're, you know, I assume that you're limiting him from experiencing are going to affect him, you know, his entire life. You know, if the only person that he knows and the only people that he knows is you and your immediate family, he's, you know, he's going to have social limitations that he would not otherwise have. Like normal kids get to meet friends, family, you know, other individuals. They get to experience the outside. That's how they learn. And I don't know what your end goal, like, I don't know what you think the end goal is here. Like, you're going to keep him in hiding until he's old enough to realize, you know, that he doesn't have the same experiences that other people have, like that he's not going to school, that, you know, at some point I assume he's going to ask, you know, who his dad is, where his father is. I just don't. I don't understand, or I don't know if you understand the long-term negative implications of what's happening right now and how it's going to affect him. Obviously this is affecting both of us drastically, but we're both adults and we've made choices that have led us to this point. But he's an innocent child. He doesn't deserve the stuff that is being forced upon him, which not only includes, limiting him for exposure, but also putting all this stuff online about him. I mean, once you put something online, it's going to be there forever. So when he's old enough to know what the internet is, he's going to probably search his name and see that his mother did all these things and accused his father of not just molesting her, but molesting him. And I I don't know. But I my thought right now is that you're probably just trying to delay to get as much time with him as possible before an inevitable outcome, which, from a selfish point of view, I can understand, because you want to spend as much time with him as possible. Possibly you're going to argue that by the time that he is recovered, you're going to argue that the only parent that he's known is you, and therefore that's a reason for why I shouldn't have custody. This has already been brought up to the court, so hopefully they're aware of that, and that's not going to fly. But it's also wrong, because the longer you delay, imagine that he's recovered tomorrow. It's going to be 2 years since I've seen him. That's going to be hard for him to transition. If it's when he's 4, that's going to be even harder. The best thing would have been for when I got custody that you and I were able to meet, for you to hand him off, and for you also to be in his life, at points in time. So he had both of us. But what's going to happen now is he's going to be taken from you. He's not going to see you at all. You'll probably be in jail. And he's going to have a tremendously hard time transitioning from the one parent that he only knew because of what you're doing to the other parent who's trying to do the best for him. So obviously I'm very frustrated with you for a lot of different things, but you're his mother. You're going to have to be in his life at some point. My intention through all this was never to take him away from you entirely, but at least to give you some time to reflect and kind of think about, what's important in life, and the things that, that maybe you can change so you can be a mother in an appropriate way instead of doing what you're doing. So that would be my end goal, because he's going to ask me, what happened to my mom? Where's my mom? The same questions that he's going to ask you, where's my dad, if you are able to successfully continue to be in hiding. So that's, I mean, if you just think about the best interest for him, I'm not all these things that you allege that I am. I've never hurt him. I never would hurt him. So I guess my ask is just for you to think about him instead of thinking about yourself. And just, it doesn't hurt. It would not hurt to, start some kind of line of communication. I think that would be the best thing for, at least the first step for everything. You can do it from some European email that's not trackable or whatever, but just setting up some kind of line of communication, even if it's through your lawyer. And I'm here, and I've been willing and ready to talk for 2 years now, and I'm not going anywhere. So
Now, as we wrap up, if Aldrich is watching as well, is there something that you would like to say to him?
just that I love him and never gonna give up on him. I've been making videos to him. Actually, that's the thing I'd also recommend for anybody who's going through the same thing is make videos to your child periodically. Just, it'll be good for them down the road, but also it'll help you. It's almost like kind of a form of therapy. So I've been doing videos that I have, just kind of updating him on, what's transpired and kind of the frustrations, with each twist and turn. But those are probably just going to stay private and not go out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And hopefully someday, I mean, whether it's he wouldn't, they're videos that he would see at some later time, like when he's 18 or old enough to deal with all that kind of stuff. It's not something that I would show to him when he was 8 years old or something.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. But I appreciate everything that you guys do and the time that you've taken. I just hope that, getting, me and who I am through my story out there, maybe it will give people a little bit more, umph to keep an eye out for her. Again, the Help Find Aldrich page is the main page. I think there's like 1,200 followers or so right now. All the supporting documentation is listed on there. Excuse me.
Yep. Hold on one second.
He was with, so that's a good thing to look out for.
There we go. You're back.
Yeah. Was I gone?
Yeah.
Oh, what was the last thing I said?